This short tutorial will cover the administration area of Koha. The administration area of Koha does have its own module. However, some modules you can link right to those system preferences connected to those modules, such as cataloging. Within the Koha administration area, it is broken up by different sections within Koha, such as patrons and circ, catalog, acquisitions, additional parameters, accounting. We're going to start in this basic parameters. This is where you're going to set up libraries. Within the Koha system, you can create a branch, give it an address, a code, some information that will help with notices, any OPAC information that lives within the OPAC display, any notes, if it's a pickup location, and if it can be visible on the OPAC. After libraries, there is a library group section, which allows a larger group of libraries to put smaller groups of libraries together for specific features found in Koha specific to library groups, such as if we want to hide information about patrons info outside of the group. We want to limit editing of items that do not belong to the group, that are outside of the group. If it is a specific staff search group, which would allow staff to be able to search within that smaller group, aka library group, within the Koha system, as well as if there is a hold group, where holds are grouped up by specific locations and have hold policies associated with specific groups. You can pick and choose which features apply to each group within the system. The next area under basic parameters are item types. And this is driven by material format, generally your item types, to define, in addition to format, circulation rules that associate with these item types, such as audiobook, maybe garden tools, DVDs. You can delve further into an item type, allowing configurations such as, is it visible on the OPAC? Is it not for loan? Are there fees associated with it? Is there a default replacement price? Is this specific to a library or all libraries? Item types are work very closely with patron categories, which we'll get into in a second, that deal with the circulation rules. The last one under basic parameters that I want to touch upon is the authorized values. And as you've seen other videos or experienced Koha in any way, you'll notice that there are a lot of drop-down menus. Those drop-down menus are driven by authorized values. So if we were talking about our shelving locations, all shelving locations that are visible are driven by what's found in this authorized value LOC. Now you can do a specific to a library, or again, available to all libraries. Under the Koha administration menu and under patrons and circ, our first stop is going to be patron categories. This allows you to define patron categories and other details that go in with each one. So you can determine whether it is a patron category you need to assign to a group of patrons in your database, or if they can reside under a different one. Patron categories work with item types in drilling down those circulation rules. Patron category types also can be determined by enrollment period, how long their password is good for, if there are age requirements or upper age requirements, enrollment fees, what type of category type they are. So if they were of the adult category type or a child, which can be linked between guarantor and guarantee. If maybe there's an organization where you're just really using one name for that patron, or something like statistical patrons, which are going to drive and hold that statistical information on material you don't circulate. You can limit a patron category by library. So if this patron category is only used by 1 or 2 libraries within your system, you can indicate that here. And then below, these all are linked to system preferences. However, you can set up something like OPAC reset in the OPAC as one thing. Yes, patrons can reset their password in the OPAC. However, you can say, but for this category, that is not allowed. So you can say follow the rule or don't follow the rule. So we get pretty granular here for passwords, password length, if they need to have a required strong password, if we're going to block them at expiration date, if we can look at their previous checkouts, their privacy levels, and then finally the default messaging preferences for this category. Assigning specific message preferences for this patron category means that as you create a new patron within this category, they will get assigned those default message preferences, which really saves time on the circulation side of registering a patron. The next area under patrons and circ that I want to dive into is the circulation and fine rules. If you are a multi-branch system, then each branch can have their own set of circulation rules. So if I scroll down here and I wanted to assign rules specific to the East branch, I can go ahead and do that. Koha is going to look at the library-specific set of rules before heading over to a default set. You can assign both a patron category and an item type. So if we had a specific patron category non-resident and we had maybe garden tools, maybe we have, 2 checkouts. How long do they check out? If there's overdues, what are those overdues? And that's your fine amount. Should we cap them at a specific price? Do we allow renewals? Is this something that can be renewed? Are there holds allowed as a non-resident on a garden tool? Are there more than 1 holds per record? Can they place an on-shelf hold? So we get lots of assigned opportunities live within each rule. We could be very general and we could be very specific in our circulation rules. We also have default checkout and hold and return policies for this specific library. If we had a maximum number of checkouts or holds by patron category for this library, we could assign that here. If we want to refund lost items by library, we can do that. Lastly, we have holds policy by item type, which would allow you to be able to assign hold policies for this specific library, who can, by what item type, can take these out from a library, from a home library. This is where we're going to bring in our groups, from a local hold group, and then those return policies. We get pretty specific in this page, but this is really important to note that something like circulation and all these circulation and fine rules, patron categories, setting up libraries, during your migration, or if you are currently a partner with Bywater, we're happy to help you through these processes. We have finally patron attribute types, which allow us to assign specific data to a patron category or all patrons. Now, as we scroll over to the right-hand side, I want to talk just a little bit about cataloging administration. We can assign frameworks, which allow us to define those mark fields and subfields per framework when we're cataloging records. We can assign our classification configuration. We can add additional record matching rules than what's put into the Koha system by default. We can assign our overlay rules, so what rules are defined when we import new records. We can create specific item search fields for our item search to be used. Under acquisitions, we can assign our currencies, our budgets, and our funds, and our EDI accounts. And then finally, under additional parameters, we have things like setting up additional Z39.50 servers, configuring the columns that are shown in tables, defining the audio alerts if you want to, assigning more SMS providers, and then our Mana knowledge base opportunities there. This is just a brief look at the administration area in Koha, but we're happy to go through this area in more detail as you are a partner with Koha and Bywater. And then finally, we have global system preferences. This is where you can turn things on and turn things off and assign specific values, such as borrower mandatory fields, borrower fields that we don't want to show. Each of the modules on the left get pretty specific. So if we head over to the circulation, we can look at, there's some subcategories. So our check-in policies, our checkout policies, our fine policies, and our hold policies. And then we can say that can patrons, in this case, allow hold date and future, allow hold requests to be placed that do not enter the waiting list under a certain future date, or allow or don't allow staff to override hold policies when placing holds. So you can see we get pretty specific, and we're able to really customize the Koha system to meet the needs of your library. There are over 800 system preferences that Koha has, and it's growing. One more area of the Koha administration lives within staff permissions. So I want to just jump into a staff account just so we can look at the permissions. Each staff member in your library can have their own set of permissions set up to them. So when they log in, their workflow is extremely streamlined, visible only to the modules that they need to utilize and the options that they have available to them. So I'm going to go into my patron account. And under your patron account, under this More dropdown, you have the option to set permissions. This is a permission to set permissions. Not everyone can go ahead and see permissions or set permissions. That is something, as we're talking about permissions, is something to note. Within Koha, there is the opportunity to give staff members within your library a super librarian permission, which means that they can have all the permissions that are available in Koha. But if we break them down a little bit more and we go to each of these, you can see they're highlightable. So if I click that, then under checkout and check-in, I can give the staff member all of these choices, or I could say they can do everything except override those blocked renewals. Every staff member will have this staff access option. This allows them to use their login on the staff side. We have the administration area, which we just explored, and all the things that can be turned on or not turned on for a staff member, such as being able to set up those record matching rules or create a Z39.50 target. We look at our add and view modify patron information, whether a staff member can do all of these, or maybe they can't delete patrons, but they can add and modify and view other patrons. Here's those user permissions. We have holds. What the patron can do, can they place holds and modify holds, or just place holds? Under the cataloging permissions, you have quite a few here that are involved with different functionalities within the cataloging module, such as fast cataloging, editing cataloged bibliographic records, or just editing items. So again, you can pick and choose which tools and actions that your patrons, staff members, can do within the system. We have patron fines and fees, acquisitions, suggestions, tools, authorities, kind of goes on and on. Access to the report module. Can they create a report or just run a report, or can they also delete a report? And then we go into lists, whether they can create lists or delete lists, and working within the electronic resource module, the newest module in Koha, whether they have that access. So you can go through and pick and choose each of these options that you think that your patron or patron groups of patrons can be assigned to. And that would really expedite that implementation process of your library over to Koha. This is just a quick overview of the administration area specific to admin and setting up your library with Koha. Thanks for watching.